I think it is time to properly introduce ourselves. Without further ado, I am Imari Rodriguez, a customer success manager here at Hivebrite. And I have the pleasure of being joined by two amazing communities, both of which are Hivebrite clients. Robin Okunowo is an environmental and social advocate and the community manager of Captain's Planet's Foundation Planeteer Alliance. And Tunukiwa Daudi is the country director at Raleigh Tanzania. He is also responsible for running the organization's community. Thank you again for being with us today. Now, with the intros out of the way, we can get the discussion started. And so actually, I will pause there for a moment. Alrighty, so as we dive into the discussion here, could you tell us a little bit more about your community and its mission? Tunukiwa, you can go ahead and begin.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So my name is Tunukiwa. I come from Tanzania. It's in the eastern part of Africa. And I am the country director at Raleigh International Tanzania, which is a part of Raleigh International. So our community currently has 1,516 active members, and it is called Action Not Excuses. It's a global youth-led environmental campaign supporting more than 100,000 young people to create green jobs, fight for zero waste and pollution, as well as reversing the deforestation. So ideally, Raleigh International has been operating in 4 countries, United Kingdom, Tanzania, Nepal, Nicaragua, and of course, Costa Rica. But we have had, for the past 40 years, a lot of volunteers, close to 40,000 volunteers volunteer with us. And when we were creating this community, we wanted to connect with all past volunteers who we call like the Raleigh alumni. And ideally, the Action Not Excuses community was ideally made for alumni from 7 countries, but lucky enough, we are now in 13 countries, 6 more countries from the intended 7 countries, because our volunteers are now living in so many other countries from their countries of origin. So yeah, the countries our community serves is Tanzania, United Kingdom, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Mongolia, Malaysia, and Nepal. Yes.
Amazing, thank you. And I will pass that question along over to Robin. And Robin, please feel free to also give us a brief intro of yourself as well. But I'll go ahead and repeat the question. Could you tell us more about your community and its mission?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Robin. I'm the program coordinator at Captain Planet Foundation. And I specifically have, domain over the Planeteer Alliance. So the Planeteer Alliance is a global community of change makers who are turning their impatience for change into action for the climate and planet. So we serve young environmental activists who are looking to get connected, get activated, and get started making change. And our online platform that we use Hivebrite for is the place where we start making those connections. So the Planetary Alliance itself is a place where they can get training, resources, and connectivity with other environmental activists all over the world. And the community serves as a place where we can have direct contact with the environmental activists, so we can bring them the trainings, the resources, the programs, expert speakers, and things like that. But then they also have a space where they can connect with other young environmental activists all over the world and say, hey, I'm doing this in Nigeria, but someone else is doing this in India. And so we can connect with one another and see what exactly it is we're doing, compare and contrast, and things like that. So the Planetary Alliance is a place where young environmental activists between the ages of 10 and 25 are getting connected, getting trained, and getting resources to become true impactful change makers.
Amazing. Well, I love to hear about both of the amazing work that both of your communities are doing. And so to follow up with that, how did you get buy-in for your community? What was the trigger for creating the community? How did you convince others of the value of your online community? And why did you need an online community platform to begin with?
Yeah, so I would say the beauty of the Planeteer Alliance is that it actually began with a series of listening sessions. So we at Captain Planet Foundation sat down with the youth who we had served and said, what is it that you need to be successful as an environmental activist? What are you looking for in a program for young environmental activists? What kinds of trainings, what kinds of resources, what are you looking for? And there were two really major things that stood out when we held these listening sessions. The first was that climate anxiety is very overwhelming, and there are lots of things that can make you feel stuck or feel like you can't make any progress when it comes to climate activism. And the second was that there was this time where you were able to get activated and you were able to start to get to work. But then once that happened, you were sort of out alone in the world working on whatever it is that you were working on. So a safe space where young climate activists could connect and really talk about the things that they're experiencing as climate activists. So a place where they could, talk about that climate anxiety and things like that, and be able to connect with, and connect with other environmental activists was something that was really crucial and important to the activists who we were speaking to. So I think that was the thought, that we were putting together this almost social network for young climate activists to be able to connect and talk with one another, not just about the work that they're doing, but the way that they're feeling and the obstacles that they're facing, and just an overall safe space where they can exist with one another. So I think that was the trigger and sort of beginning of the Planetary Alliance online platform. And because we had these listening sessions with young Planeteers, getting the buy-in was pretty easy because it was virtually their idea, right? So we were just sort of providing them with the things that they asked for. So it was almost the easiest next step to put together this online community platform for them where they could connect and share and things like that.
Well, Robin, I really love the fact that you sat down with your community members and really listened to their needs, and were able to really take information from that and really form a really conducive community and environment for them. And so, Daudi, this question I will be following you as well here. How did you get buy-in for your community?
Yes, it is more or less the same with what Robin is saying. In the middle of the pandemic, Raleigh International decided to do like a bridging strategy, because we were at the very end of our 5 years strategy as an organization, and things were very unprecedented, and we wanted to find some breathing room before we could go back to having like another 5 years strategy and organizational strategy. So within this period, we sat down with young people across 5 countries where we were active, and also listened to them what they really thought were like compelling issues facing the planet, because our organization is centered around young people being able to take action on the most urgent crisis the planet is facing. So we wanted to hear their voice and see how can we amplify it and support other young people in all other countries where our alumni come from to be able to take action. So we realized that we have young people also doing a lot of good work in the development sector, especially in the environment arena, but it's not documented. And of course, there were a lot of campaigns which were happening in silos. People were not learning from each other and pushing themselves forward. So that is why we decided to have an online community. So we wanted to have a platform that would easily document all the campaigns that are happening, especially in the 7 countries, and to mobilize more young people to join the movement on ground from the online community. So it was also easy to convince the management to have an online platform, because our organization, as I said, is youth-centered. Therefore, we've been using technology in reaching out to young people, especially social media, and convincing them to join our programs as volunteers. So there was no resistance in convincing the organization leadership to create an online community. And also because of how impactful this would be in mobilizing more young people to take action. And of course, we wanted to reach to a larger audience. And when we want to reach a larger audience, like on ground in these countries, we're fortunate enough, we have young people who already embody the vision and mission of Raleigh. So an audience of 100,000 young people in all these 7 countries wouldn't be possible if the young people in these 1,500 young people who are active members wouldn't be seeing what others are doing in other countries and pushing themselves forward by actually seeing, of course, this is happening in Tanzania, for instance. Can we do the same in Nepal? What is happening in Costa Rica? Because most of these South countries even have similar climate, and they're facing the same problems at the same GDPs, etc. So you find solutions that are working in Nicaragua work quite well in Nepal and Tanzania, etc. So it was really a great platform for us to be able to support young people to learn from each other. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It really sounds to me that it really played a huge role in regards to expansion and really getting the word across. So that's amazing. And you did touch upon this a bit. However, could you tell us a bit more about the community you serve? What do they expect to receive from your community, and how to ask them to contribute, specifically dealing with youth and these different age groups, and how are you aligning your organization's goals with the members' needs?
So yes, in this community, we serve young champions in the 7 countries, as I said, but more specifically, I look after Tanzania, Nepal, and Nicaragua. And of course, these young people mobilize other young people to create green jobs, fight for zero waste and pollution, as well as reversing deforestation. So what they mostly expect from us as a community is to receive guidance and training on how to mobilize young people, things to do with behavior change campaigning, and people-centered designs. And we also expect them to be active members of the community, supporting each other, to learn from each other, and be able to push forward the green agenda. So, and in terms of aligning what we do with the community and our organization goals, of course, our organization mission is to ignite youth-led action. So as you can see, all our members are 15 to 35. I understand 35 is not young in so many countries, but for African countries like Tanzania, their youth policy is up to 35. So we want to also not leave behind, other groups that might be felt like old in other countries, but in other countries they feel they're still young people. So our age group is 15 to 35, and also, our organization believes that young people have to be at the forefront of creating solutions to the world's most urgent crisis. And that's why I feel like the way we work with our members aligns very well with organizational goals. And of course, the climate crisis is urgent and must be worked on now. And therefore, that's why even we call ourselves actions, not excuses. Yeah.
Amazing. And Robin, I'm seeing a lot of nodding on your end. So, I'm sure you can vocalize some of the correlations there. But again, can you just tell us a little bit more about the people that you serve within your community?
Yeah, absolutely. So the catalyst for Planetary Alliance was a program that we had beforehand, which we co-founded, and we ended up training over 2,500 young people in 90 different nations. So that's when we realized that we really needed that connectivity piece and a way to keep these young Planeteers connected with one another, and then continuing to engage with them in the work that they're doing. So we have Planeteers all over the world, and so we have people who are interacting and hearing about their testimonies of their climate work all over the world. And so what we do to make sure that we're sort of serving them while also organizing or aligning with the foundation's goals, right, is to make sure that we are amplifying and uplifting young climate activists as much as we can with one, accepting that we may not always be the experts in everything, right? So we're always engaging with other people, always engaging with other experts in different fields to make sure that we're providing Planeteers with the right tools, resources, education that they need to be the ideal and most impactful climate activists. But I would say we just keep it authentically designed by youth for youth. So the Planetary Alliance, like I said, we started with this series of listening sessions, and then we took everything that we heard from those listening sessions and we sort of compiled it into this one document, and we gave it to our design squad of 14 different youth from 10 different countries, I believe. And we basically said, go ahead, design it. And so we really handed over the reins to the youth who we were planning to serve by allowing them to develop this online platform, develop the program, and make sure that it was being authentic to what these youth wanted. And so that was great. And then we transitioned, once the program was created, we transitioned out of the design squad into the Wisdom Council. And so the Wisdom Council serves as our sounding board between Planetary Alliance over at like Team HQ and the youth that we're serving, to make sure that we're continuing to stay authentic to what it is that we're trying to do, but making sure that it's actually serving the population of our Planeteers all over the world. So we just continue to open that conversation between our members and making sure that Planeteers are letting us know what it is that they need, and making sure that we can provide that to them in a way that's genuinely going to give them the tools that they need.
Oh, Robin, I think that needs to be a slogan somewhere, for youth, by youth. Love it. And so this is a specific question that I have for the Raleigh Tanzania community. Could you tell us more about some of your key engagement initiatives and explain how they are helping you drive positive impact?
Sure. So as I said, in the community, in our online community, we have 7 countries, but I'll explain on the 3 countries that I look after. So yes, there's a campaign called Green List, for instance, in Costa Rica. And this is a movement of young people in Costa Rica that want to make their country more sustainable through training young leaders to become environmental experts and to promote sustainable lifestyles through their actions. So they create educational campaigns which change young people's habits so that they are able to also demand for greener and cleaner products. So this is through a lot of social media engagements, and also because this was created in the very heart of the pandemic. So there were no movements at that time, but they were able to do a lot of also in online engagements with a lot of champions, environmental champions in Costa Rica. And their aim is to increase the knowledge and actions of those young people in ecological biodiversity, waste management and reduction, sustainable lifestyles, as well as environmental leadership. So that is what Costa Rica has been doing. There's a lot of work that is happening in Nicaragua through their movement called Dame a Chance, or Give Me a Chance in English. So this is a movement of young people also fighting to reduce deforestation and improve green livelihoods in Nicaragua. So they looked at the data and they found that around 1979, their country was close to 70% of their country land was forests. But if you look at it now, it's within 30%. So they see that there's a very high deforestation rate, and this is due to unsustainable farming, combined with poverty and population increase, which have put huge pressure on their forests. So actually the impact of COVID-19 also threatened more young people's livelihoods, and of course they find themselves encroaching these forests and destroying them in order to make a living through charcoal and the likes. So Dame a Chance will tackle deforestation and unemployment by helping more than 6,000 local farmers to increase forest cover and do organic farming and proper farming that won't harm the forest. And they are also working with young people from rural communities to develop new job opportunities so that they are no longer forced to cut down forests, and with their local communities as well to conserve and protect their precious forests. As I said, so these online communities, they do not just end there for countries that we are actively working in. There are also physical activities happening on ground. So that's the beauty of it. So it is taken online and offline at the very same time. So last but not least, there's another movement in Tanzania called Kesho Tutachelewa, that is Swahili for tomorrow is too late. And this is a movement of young people fighting to reverse deforestation again, as in Nicaragua, Tanzania is facing the same problem. And they activate young people to plant trees and campaign to stop the use of unsustainable sources of fuel like charcoal. So, there's a lot of trainings they're also doing and campaigning on. For instance, now, the use of briquettes, which are more sustainable charcoal from the farm produce. So there's a lot of training that is ongoing on that, and also supporting people to uptake the use of natural gas, because we have a lot of natural gas here, but people, have their own belief in terms of, they feel like when you cook food using charcoal is more, delicious than using gas. So that's a behavior change problem. And the Tanzanian young people are trying and making sure that they are changing that behavior through their Kesho Tutachelewa campaign.
Well, thank you so much, Tunukiwa, for that response and for touching upon, the real impact COVID-19 had on rural communities, youth specifically. Thank you so much for enlightening us on some of that. And so I also have a specific question for the Planeteers. So you're communicating with a young audience, and so they're digital natives, they're connected on numerous platforms, and perhaps have a shorter attention span than most, right? So how do we get them to connect to the platform, and how are we engaging them? Could you share some specific tactics or strategies that you have all used?
Absolutely. So I think this is something that a lot of, even if you don't have an online platform, but a lot of organizations are starting to realize that Gen Z is completely different than any other generation that they've ever really worked with before. And I think the difference is in the core of what it is that we're doing, right? So this is our direct youth training and impact program. And so we're focusing on the individual and what we can do to amplify and really uplift young climate activists, because we don't have to, encourage them to be climate activists, and we don't have to encourage them to do the things that, that Tunukiwa is fighting for and what other organizations are fighting for. We're not necessarily having to motivate them in that way. What we are doing is making sure that we're authentically engaging them with climate solutions, and making sure that the work that we're doing is going to be making an impact, and making sure that they are change makers in the way where they can see the impact of their work in their community. So I would say one tactic or a strategy is what I mentioned earlier, was our youth design squad and our wisdom council. We are designed by youth for youth. So if there's something that they are specifically looking for, whether it be programming, a speaker, a specific training, making sure that we're providing them with those tools and resources because it's what they want. And then I would say also staying a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to, before they can ask for things, making sure that, what is it that we would want when we were young climate activists. I think a lot of the people at Captain Planet Foundation, specifically the people who work more with Planetary Alliance, always say that we want to be the adults that we wanted when we were kids doing this, right? So we want to be the people who we were looking for when we were all on this climate journey and thinking, oh man, I don't see any representation, or I don't see any guidance, or I don't see any connectivity, or I don't see any diversity, making sure that we are not making the mistakes that have already been made. And so trying to keep ourselves accountable and make sure that, we are not contributing to the problem, but we're contributing to the solution. And another thing I would say is that this is a social network for climate activists, right? So it's a different kind of audience than if you are hitting on Instagram or TikTok or any of your other social media platforms, because I think the attention spans are a little bit different, right? So we're not doing like long programming or anything like that. Like nobody wants that at all. But when you have someone really cool come in, like someone who works for the Waterkeeper Alliance, and you have a group of people who are interested in protecting water and marine ecosystems, right? Those are the kinds of things that they're gonna keep them engaged. And so just knowing that like we don't have to be at the front of everything, and providing them with the people and the resources and the tools that they actually want to see has been really, really helpful. But, you know, we do get active on TikTok and Instagram just for that little supplementary, keeping people engaged, and also letting people learn about what Planetary Alliance is and what we do and things like that. But within the platform itself, I would say it's really just letting the Planeteers be the dictators of what kind of content goes on the platform, and being the sounding boards for bringing them the right tools and resources, but really allowing them to take charge of their climate journey.
Well, I love that. And I love how they're taking ownership. And I believe you also mentioned, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's a perfect segue. So I will pose this question to both of you. How are you incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion into your community building?
All right, so yes, diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, in our organization is a very important, not just a subject or topic. We have a policy actually for EDI. And of course, we have several policies that support us to make sure that we are diverse and we are inclusive in, first of all, from even the recruitment process of these young people. Because as I said, for our online community, these are young people who have already volunteered with Raleigh International. So mostly they are not new people to Raleigh. So from the very beginning, we have a safeguarding policy and EDI policy and recruitment policy that supports us to be able to ensure that we identify and prevent unconscious biasness in all forms. So, and also that helps a lot of young people to join us as an organization, even before joining the online platform, to be young people coming from all walks of lives. And of course, as you can see, we have young people from the Southern Hemisphere countries and the Northern Hemisphere countries. So we are very inclusive, and that is a part and parcel of our day-to-day activities. So, and also we have trained our staff to be able, on these policies, to be able to ensure that then they have any biasness unconscious, so unconsciously someone can have biasness, and we try to prevent that as much as we can. So that's why also in our community, we have, almost 50-50 in terms of gender. And also we have young people coming from, poor backgrounds and a bit more advantaged backgrounds, etc. So we have a mixture of young people from all different kinds of cultures. And also we have, even at our organization, when we bring in young people as volunteers, we train them a lot on cultural differences, because we believe nothing is right and nothing is wrong, it's just different. So people come from different backgrounds, they have to understand, why someone behaves the way they behave, and which will also enable them or enhance them to be able to work very well with this person. So the good thing about our community is that most young people have worked together before, or have worked in a different country than their original country. So for them, it is easy to be inclusive and be able to understand each other when it comes to sharing of knowledge and expertise. Yeah.
That was beautifully said. And I just wanted to highlight something that you said, which was the word different, right? Different instead of so many other words that people might choose to use, weird, etc. Right? Different poses no judgment. And I really love that. And so, Robin, I'll pose the question on to you as well. So how are you incorporating DEI into your community building?
Yeah, so first I'll just echo everything Tunukiwa just said, because it's so crucial when you're working with such a diverse group of people that you really embrace. So at Captain Planet Foundation, we do JEDI, right? So justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. And I would say, because at the center of climate justice is social justice, you can't separate those two concepts, especially because climate has such exposing impacts on what social injustice really looks like. And you can see it being exacerbated by these climate disasters happening all over the world. So the Planetary Alliance is based on the original mythology of the show, Captain Planet and the Planeteers. And I like to talk about this because it really does, the show itself always incorporated diversity and inclusion. Each one of the Planeteers is from a different continent. They represent a different element, and they use their diverse powers to come together and create Captain Planet, who is this climate superhero, right? And so I truly believe that Captain Planet is sort of a metaphor for the beauty of collective action and how combining your powers, right? So by our powers combined, can really lead to true climate action. So I think that's one thing that's really beautiful. And then another thing is that we do have 5 elements. So there's earth, water, fire, wind, and we have this 5th element, which is heart. And heart is all about empathy, love, and compassion. And so I think that's something that's truly at the center of all of Planetary Alliance and Captain Planet Foundation's programs. So we always are incorporating justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion into all things that we do, because we're serving such a diverse community. We have Planeteers all over the world. And so we can't make blanket statements about, well, if I'm going to address climate change here in Atlanta, Georgia, it's not going to be the same as someone who's addressing it in Yucatan, Mexico, or in Bengal, or Nigeria, or anywhere all over the right. So we have to always be aware of the diverse community. Earlier, like Tunukiwa said, that they serve people from 15 to 35. And so even the concept of youth, is something that's different all over the world. So we have to be aware of our community and who we're serving to truly incorporate diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice into our programs. And I think it's something that translated easily for Planetary Alliance, being based off Captain Planet and the Planeteers, right? Because we have those Planeteers from all over the world, and you have this understanding of diversity and things like that. So making sure that those principles are at the center of every program is crucial for us. And I think it's crucial for our Planeteers as well. And luckily, it's not really something that we had to, like emphasize with them, or they just sort of got it. And so that was great for creating this community of people.
Excellent. And I love that. JEDI, you have to patent that. That's great.
Our JEDI.
How are you measuring impact? What key metrics are you monitoring?
So within our community, sort of once you become an official Planeteer is when you've decided to either join one of our climate solution projects or start your own action plan climate solution project. So we really emphasize that Planeteers understand how to track metrics and know how to report out about the work that they're doing. So part of our training of becoming a Planeteer is actually understanding how to track your own metrics and ensuring that you know what success looks like for your action plan. So that's something that Planeteers learn as they become an official Planeteer, so they can continue to track their success. And if that becomes something useful that they use for grant writing or things like that, they can use those tools later on. But internally, I would say number of Planeteers is something that we like to keep track of, so we can see how our community is growing. The countries that we're representing, genders and ages are something to keep track of, just because we want to make sure that our community is continuing to grow in a sort of equitable and an inclusive way. And then ultimately, I think what success and what metrics are the most important are the climate impacts that we're making. So being able to actually start thinking about how many pounds of carbon are our Planeteers pulling out of the atmosphere, and looking at how many pounds of food waste are they taking out of their communities, and things like that. So we have these like tangible sort of climate solutions that we're working towards. And so we're reporting against those and looking at how Planeteers are being successful across the world.
Excellent. And I'm going to pass that question along to you, Tunukiwa, as well. How are you all measuring impact?
Yes, to echo what Robin has said, of course, our communities are a part of, our bigger programs that are also happening within these countries. The online community becomes a part of these programs, which already have like predefined logical frameworks, on all the activities we do. So we have specific indicators for all the activities that happen through these communities. And of course, we also train our young people, especially these champions, the 1,500 champions that are part of this community, on how to measure the impact in terms of, first of all, just looking at the specific outcomes, short-term outcomes in a specific activity they go to, and things like, how many trees have you planted? And we normally have goals to reach at every year. And for instance, this program was 4 years, a 4 years program, so they had like numbers to be able to reach. So we also do like not just quantitative. We don't look at the data quantitatively only. We also look at it in a qualitative manner. So looking at, for instance, in terms of what the knowledge have our members gained as a part of the community. And that is something that we are trying also. We've not, reached where we want to be at in terms of measuring the impact the community is having on our members. And that is something that we want to touch base on in the future. But ideally at the moment, we have like specific indicators that we measure our activities against. And since mostly these programs are short-term, some of them are, depends on a country, 1 year, 2 year, but we have other programs that are like 4 years. So we get an opportunity to also do an end-line evaluation and also be able to check against the baseline and the midline and see what the data is telling us. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, it sounds like there's a lot of, accountability that needs to be held, and goals that need to be set. So that's amazing. And so this is our last question before we hop into our Q&A. I do see some very interesting questions in here. So lastly, what are your future plans for the community?
Yeah, so if I can continue where I ended, for the past around 3 years, we've been having this community. We've realized that there's a gap in terms of how we measure the impact our members go through. So we are in a process of creating what we call CPPD, like a continuous personal and professional development plan. And we want to incorporate this within the platform. So we will be having like a lot of tools that support these young people to be able to understand where they are at their personal and professional development in terms of the green agenda and becoming, green environmentalists. So there will be a lot of, in these tools, we will have a lot of metrics that young people can measure themselves against and see how they are progressing forward. So that is what we plan for the future for our community, because at the very end, we want to ensure that this is not just a platform where they see what others are doing, but we want to see them growing and becoming better at what they do. And we want to be able to measure that. So that's mostly what we plan for our community. And at the very end is, of course, in line with our organization's vision to ensure that we support young people to become solution makers of the problems the world is facing. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, it sounds like you're
Thank
setting
you.
them up for success. And
Thank
Robin,
you. Yeah.
lastly, what are your future plans for your community?
Of course, we're always looking to grow Planetary Alliance. We are always trying to bring in new Planeteers. But I think next sort of big steps for Planetary Alliance are hopefully moving to hybrid / in-person events. So we're actually at the end of January, at the end of July, wow. We will be hosting a series of Blue Climate Action Summits. So there are actually going to be 9 in-person summits happening all over the world. So there's 2 in Kenya, 1 in Nigeria, Mexico, Jamaica, India. This is always my test. USA. There's a few more. So we'll be hosting those, and then we'll be having a global virtual Blue Climate Action Summit as well. So anyone who can't attend an in-person summit can do an online summit. So we're hosting that at the end of July. And then in October, we have a big Planeteer celebration planned for our Planeteers. So we're going to be announcing that to them soon and sort of getting them excited about, one, becoming a Planeteer and getting started with their climate work, and then just showing them what kinds of rewards can come out of being someone who is truly a champion for the climate. So we want to continue to do the work with our Planeteers and make sure that we're heading towards those climate solutions and in this sort of 10-year sprint that we have planned, but also making sure that we take the time to reward and honor our Planeteers for the work that they're doing and celebrate all the amazing things that they've accomplished since the Planetary Alliance launched in February of this year. So it's been exciting to think about all of the ways that we can grow and then all the things that we can bring to Planeteers as we get more and more Planeteers. So looking forward to doing all those events and celebrations.
Well, it sounds like really bright futures for both of your communities. And now would be an excellent time for us to transition and take some time for some final questions from the audience. So I'm going to click on the Q&A and see what we've got here. All righty. So this is a question for both communities here. So are there geographical places or social places such as certain schools where you can find your participants are clustered? I ask because as broad as both of your organizations are, covering many countries, I feel like we do not have any comprehensive connection system. In short, networks feel comprised of scattered people. So I don't know if either of you want to go first. I'll allow you to go ahead and jump in to anyone who'd like to. Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah, if I can go first, I think, yeah, for our countries, as I said, the beauty is that our community is of members that have been with the organization. So, so looking at how we get our volunteers, that would be a question. So it differs from country to country. But mostly, for instance, in the UK, it has been, young people after their A-levels, after high school. They take like a gap year to do like community work before they go to universities. So these are certain places we find most of our volunteers. And this quite differs from places like Nepal and Tanzania, where most of our young people are actually recent graduates. So for them, like they have done their undergrad and they feel like this is also an opportunity to be able to get into the development sector. And for instance, for those who want to work within the environmental / climate change organizations, NGOs and nonprofits. So they feel like this is also giving them an opportunity to be able to learn something different from what they learned from the university. So in all countries, their background differ in so many ways. And yeah, sure.
Excellent, Robin.
For Planetary Alliance, I would say just probably because we're Planetary Alliance and Captain Planet Foundation are based in the US, we have more Planeteers who are currently in the US, but not by much. We have, I think, like almost 30 different countries represented in the platform right now. And it is a pretty even distribution. There's probably more in the US simply because we're in the US. But other than that, it's a pretty even distribution across the countries that are represented. Another way that Planetary Alliance is looking to expand is actually starting school clubs. So I think those, like thinking about those clusters, will start to happen, but more intentionally. So starting those school clubs, you'll be able to have, like whatever gap that maybe an environmental club is not filling on a campus, you could start a Planetary Alliance school club, and they can facilitate Planetary Alliance events and things like that on campuses and in schools. But in terms of feeling like you have a bunch of scattered networks, I think that the platform itself actually resolves those issues. So even if you have a large group of people in the US is a big country, right? So we have people on the West Coast, we have people in Central, and we have people on the East Coast, and even that can feel disconnected. So everyone can get on the platform or on the app at the same time and say, hey, like, I'm on here and we're talking and da-da-da. So I think the online platform actually resolves some of those clusters and connectivity issues by bringing everyone together in one central location.
Excellent. And so moving on to the next question, you both have members with different interests and levels of experience. What's your strategy for providing each member with the best community experience? And how are you doing this with your community platform? Either or, Robin, I don't know if you want to start off with this one, or Tunukiwa,
Sure.
if you want to. Yeah, sure.
So Planeteers enter the platform after applying to join. They sign a waiver just for safety, youth reasons. Once they're in the platform, to actually become an official Planeteer, you actually have to go through a boot camp. So you go through boot camp, and this is our way of sort of evening out the playing field. So you may have someone who comes in who's already experienced with doing climate work, and then you may have someone who comes in and they're really, not experienced at all with putting together an action plan and knowing what to do when it comes to climate work. So everyone goes through boot camp and everyone gets the same training. And then you can power up your training by attending programs, by going to different events and things like that to start adding on to that experience and getting more expertise in climate work, and then continuing your work with either joining an existing project or getting started with one of your own.
Yeah, so ideally for us, it's both online and offline, and of course that because in all these countries, mostly these leaders, 1,500 young people, have met or tend to meet regularly because they are in our informal Raleigh Tanzania society. So in each country, we have a society with its own leadership of former volunteers. So in terms of how we get them involved mostly and make sure that they're interested, is first of all, they see there's something that is already there, like have a leadership in place, and they see these leaders are in the community, doing a lot of campaigning and posting regularly. So in these physical meetings or online meetings, these leaders tend to support those volunteers that come in after finishing one of our programs to ensure that they become active members of the community. And we have also made it compulsory for our alumni to receive like a certificate of becoming an alumni member to ensure that they pass through several things, and one of them is being an online within this online community and doing something actual activity on ground. For instance, in Tanzania, becoming a part of maybe a tree planting event and showcasing that in a community. So we are taking it both offline and online, or online within the community and online through other like Zoom calls they do like regularly on a monthly basis. And so, yeah, I think for a community to be more active, apart from using Hivebrite platform, you also have to ensure sometimes if you are you have a nature like ours, to have like a sort of a leadership within that community that, you know, ends, for instance, every year or once in 2 or 3 years. So that leadership, you know, ensures that those who come in within the community have like role models or people they look up to, and there is some form of structure that supports the community. So if you're an organization like us, like having a lot of volunteers who are part of the community, I think this can work well.
Yeah. Tunukiwa, you mentioned leadership, which is a great segue into this following question, which is, how do you provide your users with what they need on the platform? So do you post a blanket post in the community? Are you DMing, messaging specific members? Are you emailing a survey, excuse me? How exactly are you engaging with them?
Yeah, so for us is we have other forms of communication as well. Like, for instance, our society, which is a part of this community, has like leadership. They have email addresses. We provide them with like, because in Tanzania, for instance, that leadership has only like at national level 5 people. So sometimes a lot of them come from like remote areas. We provide them with smartphones, which are part of the program, and therefore they are able to receive information and support their peers through our other forms of communication. So it is through emails, and we also have like WhatsApp groups, because most of these young people have smartphones, and we find that is an easier way to get them to, you know, get a message easier, because not all of them have Hivebrite or as an app on their phones. So we use other social media platforms that are more popular depending on the country. Other countries use Telegram to be able to, you know, engage them and ensure that they go back to the community, because that's where everything is documented, and that's where we have like a structure showing everything that they need. So yeah, we use both the platform and other you know, media of communication as an organization. Yeah.
Excellent. So it sounds like it's essentially a core center for your resources.
Yes.
Excellent.
For us, that's how it works. Yeah.
Great. And Robin, did you want to touch upon that at all?
Yeah, I would just say quickly, like a lot of the stuff that anything that, so as a community manager, I'll post a lot of our events, opportunities, and things in the platform itself. But otherwise, we really just encourage Planeteers to post the things that they want and have that open communication between myself and the Planeteers on the platform about what it is that they actually need. I would also say the Wisdom Council, which is our youth leadership sort of governing board, will provide a lot of that information as well. So we will rely on them to make decisions about content and programs and things, so that we aren't the ones making the decisions about what youth would want. We let the youth decide what they want. So typically we just sort of step back and then we listen, and then we decide what it is that what to bring to them.
Awesome. So we have a question here from Victoria. She says, some of our community members have been involved for 20 plus years, and we're attempting to encourage a culture shift. But change can be hard for these long-term community members. Was there a time where your organization wanted to take the community in a different direction than the community members envisioned? And how did you handle this?
Yeah, so from our end, you know, our online community has not been there for quite a long time, and we've not been at a position where we want to take a different direction, but we are heading there. As I said, like, you know, from this year, we are looking into involving more tools within the platform, and, you know, seeing them through a certain pattern of growth. So we feel like it will make them become more engaged with the community, and we would want them to be more engaged with the community than just maybe posting what they're doing only. And we feel that is a shift. And, you know, we haven't anticipated how how it will change their perception in terms of how they use the platform. But yeah, I'll be happy to also hear if Robin has been in that situation before.
We just launched in February, so we are sort of starting on a blank slate. So we had the opportunity to make a lot of decisions about what it is that we wanted. And I would say because we don't really have any 20-plus-year-old community members. A lot of our community members aren't even 20 yet. So they might be a little bit more open to change and transition just because of the population that we're working with. But so, yeah, not necessarily.
Awesome. And I do want to be mindful of time here. I will leave you all with one last question here. How do you encourage members to take more action for your causes using the platform? So whether that's incentivizing them or, some sort of marketing initiative, what exactly are you all doing there? Robin, you can begin.
So the cool thing about Planetary Alliance is that Planeteers kind of come to us with the things that they want to do. So I would say the strategies and tactics that we use for activating these climate activists, it doesn't have to be too much like pulling teeth because they already have the want to do the work. Where the work comes is actually in the execution, right? So making sure that they are doing the work that they say that they want to do. And I would say we do that by laying out the blueprint for getting those stepping stones started. So you go through boot camp and then you learn how to put together an actual impactful action plan and being a change maker and how to make change in your community. So giving them that template and that platform to get started, I think is a really good way to continue that activation and getting to work. Because a lot of times you're like, okay, I am very passionate about climate change, right? And I really want to get started in switching to renewables in my community. That's a big job, right? Like that's a big thing to think about. So being able to digest these small achievable goals and then getting started, if you really get rid of that roadblock of how to get started and what to do first, I think you have more success when it comes to that longevity of work and getting people to stay activated for longer periods of time. And then I would say another thing is connecting Planeteers on the platform. It is so cool when I get on social media and I see like one of our Planeteers in Australia is having a webinar type thing with one of our Planeteers in Jamaica. Like we are creating these connections where people are saying, oh my gosh, we're both fighting for the health of our oceans on different sides of the world, but we can come together and we can have a conversation about what it is that we're doing and the tactics that work and the strategies that don't work. So a lot of it is taking ourselves out of the middleman and just giving them this platform and like giving them the tools and things and then letting them go forward and do the work and then connect with one another. And it is so beautiful to see these connections, sort of made all over the world. So it's pretty easy to activate them and get them to want to do it. You just got to sometimes give people the tools and get them started and then they'll keep going from there. So I would say we light the fire and then maybe that's a bad metaphor right now with everything happening in Europe, but
yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the clock now and we are sadly out of time. I do want to thank you both very much and thank the audience for the questions and for everyone who has been here today. Robin and Tunukiwa, once again, thank you for sharing your insights and expertise with us. To our audience, we will be sharing the recording of this webinar via email. So if you have any questions, please hit reply on that email and let us know. A survey link has been dropped in the chat. We would really appreciate it if you would take 1 minute to give us your feedback on today's webinar. All righty, thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.